afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's Sustainability and Green Infrastructure webinar. We're very, very excited to have an amazing panel that have joined us today. And you have to excuse us, today's webinar, we are sort of shooting from the hip a little bit here as we move between different speakers and different environments. We've got some folks joining us a little bit later during the webinar. So hang in there. We are sort of flexing our technological muscles here a bit. So to start this webinar off, I'd just really like to give you a little bit of housekeeping. I know many of us have participated in this webinar platform before, but just to run through it again, if you look at the bottom of your box, you'll see there is a little icon that says chat. Please feel free to put your questions into the chat box. You know, it's there. We can answer questions. We not only do have the team in front on the panel, but we also have a number of experts in the background who are happy to answer any questions as we go along. So please feel free. This is the opportunity to really ask the questions and tackle those burning issues. You'll also see there's a Q&A box. You can more than welcome to put your questions in there as well. During the course of the webinar, we're going to have a few polls. The poll box will pop up. You can select your answer. Once you've finished answering the poll, you just click on the little red circle and it will go away. If you don't want to answer the poll, that's fine. We do run the polls just to kind of get the vibe and to pick up some more additional information of where we are from a sustainability point of view. You'll see there is a poll that's come up now, and you can answer it, and this information is collected and shared at the end. So let me just quickly run through our panel and so that we can get to know everybody. Starting off, I'd really like to welcome Brett Petzer. Brett Petzer is a property developer and the CEO of the Greenhill Housing Compnay, and he has been through a 7-year journey with the City of Tshwane to get his development basically completely off-grid. And not only is it off-grid, but he's come up with some very interesting financial solutions where he'll be feeding power back into the grid, and there's different revenue mechanisms around that as well. So Brett, would you like to introduce yourself there?
Hi guys, as introduced, Brett's my name, and green housing is what we do. So yeah, thanks Estate Living for this, and welcome everybody. You tell me when you want me to start, please.
Absolutely. So just to quickly run through the rest of the panel, if you don't mind popping back to that previous slide, Julia. So we are very happy to have the eThekwini municipality with us today, and I just really want to thank the team. We have 3 different entities represented within this webinar, and I think for those of you who are both developers and estate managers in the eThekwini area or Durban, please feel free to ask your questions. Naseem, Magash and Claire will be with us. They're both talking about C40 and various aspects as it comes to property development in estates. Guys, would you like to just quickly introduce yourselves? Naseem? I think we've lost Naseem. Is she there?
Hi, I was on mute. Thanks, Louise. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for attending and for giving us your time. My name is Naseema Elias. I work for C40, and I'm seconded to the eThekwini municipality driving a green buildings program. Thanks.
Thank you. Magashi?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Magash Naidoo from the Energy Office at the eThekwini municipality.
Claire, if you'd like to quickly introduce yourself.
Yes, hi everybody. My name's Claire Norton, and I'm with the Land Use Management branch of the eThekwini municipality.
Hi, Claire. Kevin, are you there? You can sort of introduce yourself as well, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kevin Shames, and I'm from Bright Light Solar.
Wouter?
Yes, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Wouter de Kock. I'm from PEC Utility Management.
And last but not least, Jonathan.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me. My name is Jonathan Hurvitz, and I run the Teljoy Group.
Fantastic. So thank you very much to everyone again for joining us. So let's just, if we get going, Brett is going to start the afternoon off, and he's going to be talking about the process that he went through to get his green entire production off-grid, his entire development off-grid, and that process dealing with City of Tshwane. So Julia, if you don't mind popping the video on, and then Brett, over to you.
Petzer, and I am the visionary behind the Green Housing Compnay, and I've been in the real estate industry for 33 years. So this evening's event is to celebrate the fact that we've been given this off-grid approval by Tshwane. And what we've done up the road at Greenhill Estate is we've actually found solutions for water, sewer and power. So the development is going to be completely off-grid, self-sustaining, beautiful villas in the city, and we've got to be one of the first, that's for sure. Important thing is that this will unlock previously gridlocked developments. With the approval of embedded generation comes the precedent in law, which means that we can persevere to roll that out into the country.
It's been an incredible journey. It started years ago when Eskom failed us and strangled our economy in doing so. And as a developer at the time, and those of us unfortunate enough to own developable real estate, will remember the feeling of not being able to go ahead and develop that real estate. Pain of being in those bonds and being in debt while we couldn't go forward. It was at that time that I decided to find the solution, and the passion was born. And being one of the top most solar efficient cities in the world, it wasn't hard to find. In the design, I had to eliminate heating and cooling. To get off grid with our traditional heating and cooling systems meant that we need to find twice the power we really needed to live. And with the solutions that I learned in Europe and traveling around the world, I realized that we didn't have, an extremely cold environment to live in, but we had an extremely warm environment to live in. And by introducing insulation into our housing system, we managed to get rid of those needs for heating and cooling. It really started there because getting this first house off grid was not only a challenge in the sense that I had to convince the market, but I had to convince the commercial world that this was in fact going to work. And we built our first unit 8 years ago. We got people in, people looked, people loved, and people bought. And the next challenge, of course, getting the banks on board and getting them to believe that their bonds were safe in our hands. And by moving away from brick and mortar, the challenges were many. To convince market that had been believing in a system since, I think, the Tower of Babel, they started putting bricks on top of each other. And 7 years later, we were approved to roll out this building system, which included double glazing windows. It included insulated structure from top to bottom, to give people the opportunity to live in a home for the entire year without ever being uncomfortable, because the house itself is doing that work. But it didn't stop there. So we went on to solve the nation's problem, not just our own problem from door to door, because if we as a nation are looking for employment right now, there's one industry we can find it in, and that's the unlocking of a previously gridlocked nation And this decision by a really brave bunch of boys at Tshwane, was they have taken it on to be the first municipality to actually support this initiative in getting people to live off grid. But how did we get there? First of all, as a developer, I had to waive the rights to ever claim energy from the municipality, because their questions were like, okay, good. So we give you this right, off you go, you develop this thing. How do we know it's going to work? And how do we know you're not going to come back at us? So we signed paper and we said, okay, fine, we'll take our chances. But we're 100% transparent in that when we bring people to the development. And in our sales process, we are explicit in the fact we say, look, guys, we're all going out on a limb here, but we can at least guarantee you what you're going to pay for power, what you're going to pay for water. But we can also guarantee you that the power is not going to switch off. And yeah, guarantees are big words. But I mean, it's all in the setup, right? By involving people way cleverer than me. I've got a bunch of engineers around me. We make sure that we overcompensate, that we're thinking ahead, that we're not just thinking about our own sustainability. But in the design of the whole system, we've come to terms with Tshwane where we're now giving power back into the grid. And I want to bring to the market a levy-free lifestyle for people who believe in our product. I want to give them not only a comfortable, reliable, beautiful, secure space to live in, but I also want to guarantee them what they spend every month so they can budget their lives. They know the security's on. They know that things are working. And by them allowing me by way of something very clever, so for those of you out there and sort of asking yourselves, how did we get this right? We came up with something really smart called an aerial servitude, where we take not ownership, but we kind of take ownership over your roof in the sense that we put our panels up. We're allowed to get up there and clean them, and you allow that whole system to work, and for that, we're able to create enough energy to sustain ourselves by feeding back into the grid and getting paid for that. And Tshwane is that brave. Other municipalities, of course, are going to follow. But again, we hail those guys at Tshwane who've supported us. Ratepayers stimulate the economy. That was the other debate. Oh, but you know, what are we going to do about the fact that we don't earn our power that we sell? I said, hey, Oaks, here's the problem. Because we are Eskom strapped, we're creating neither. We're neither creating ratepayers nor are we creating power users. But ratepayers stimulate the economy. They go down the road to the spa. Their children do karate. They go to schools. Well, what do you not want to have? And so these guys sat with me and we debated this through. And I said, well, listen, you're right. So Eskom's got us in a situation where we can't produce profit out of power. But hey, let's let developers go ahead and create ratepayers. With fixed power costs, water costs, consumers can sit back and budget their lives. They know what they're paying. They know it's going to stay on. The kids are happy. Security's on. We look after all of that in our setup. We as a developer, we've maintained ownership and we've maintained the responsibility to keep the lights on and keep the water flowing. And that's how we've set ourselves up. And there might be 100 variables in that. Happy to debate that with any of you in the future. But that's how we've set ourselves up. And again, I go back to the transparency in the sales process. People know. They're coming into an environment where they look at us, they look at our systems, they look at the way we're going to do it, and they believe in it, and that's why they want to buy it. As an income generator for the developer, the homeowner is a partner in that business by that allowance of us to use the roof. So between us, we partners up in running our estate and making sure that we can live a levy-free lifestyle. By enjoying sustainability, which is profitable, I think we can all look at ourselves and say we're doing the right thing. We're doing our bit. Yes, and are those systems going to get worse over time? I don't know. I don't know. I'd like to think not, for the betterment of our country, but there's a part of me that says I think we should be prepared. And we're up on the hill here and we are prepared. I think also as a 33-year experienced property developer, marketer, I see that these projects that take on this nature are going to grow in value better than projects where this has not been thought through. So for future developers, people that are listening, people that are thinking, I think that our houses, self-sustainable houses, are going to become valuable fast, and they're going to become sought after. And hey, for landlords, imagine, you know, when someone's looking around and they're looking for a place to rent, I think a self-sustainable development would be where they choose. Security, security, security. I can't say it enough. You know, the one thing that people underestimate when the power goes off is just that. What we've done here is we've done away with the human factor. We've moved into the robotics era. We're dealing with off-site guarding, where no one can be enticed, no one can be threatened. When you arrive at our complex, if you're not meant to go in that gate, you ain't going in that gate. And we just believe that we're available to talk to everybody about this. I think it's got to spread. It's got to become something that the whole country embraces. The faster we do that, the faster we're going to give people jobs. And the faster we give people jobs, the better it's going to be for us all. That's my short story.
Thanks very much, Brett. It's an exciting story, and I don't think it's a short story, because just as you're talking, I'm scribbling down notes here, and I think you've opened up a little bit of a can of worms there, definitely. I mean, the concept of a levy-free estate or development, it's fantastic. It obviously requires revenue models to operate. I mean, water, security aren't the only costs that a estate carries, or a development carries, of any kind, sectional title. Do you see that the revenue that you can generate through the resale of power being enough to sustain those other costs? I don't know if Brett...
any doubt. The only costs that are left over and above, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So for me, the only costs over and above those consumption costs that you're talking about, Louise, are really just the insurance on the common areas. So, you know, if we're lighting with solar interior, if we're lighting through solar, we are doing all of that through solar, all of those costs come out of the levy. So, you know, I've been on a levy warpath my whole life. I just can't understand why levies need to be what they are and how that whole system works. So we're in that business, and I know it's a bold statement, but I've made a few in my life, and this is one of them.
Brett, just another question, and I'm sure the questions that come from the audience or from maybe even our colleagues there at eThekwini might have a few questions as well. But if the model is that you are feeding power back into the grid, can you just sort of go a little bit, give us a little bit of information about how you got that agreement in place? I know it took 7 years, and you obviously had relationships at the City of Tshwane, but if you could just kind of go into a little bit more detail about who did you speak to, and what was your proposal, and was it only with Eskom, or have you spoken to other renewable energy partners that are growing in the market?
So our engagement has been totally with Tshwane. I say this with respect. We haven't spoken to Eskom about our stuff in a very long time. We tried in the beginning. We tried hard. We really tried. But all of our negotiations in this deal have been with the guys at Tshwane, and they've seen the wave. I think Tshwane is one of the most pioneering is the word I'm looking for, municipalities. The guys they really have ears to hear. They're out there, they're looking for solutions. Amazing bunch of guys. So we got round the table with the decision makers. We proposed the, like I said, you know, do you want ratepayers or do you want no ratepayers and no power contributors, or do you just want ratepayers that contribute to the whole system of, you know, the community? So they caught us and they said, no, come, let's put up houses, because if we've got houses, we've got people, we've got ratepayers, we've got communities growing. So like I say, you know, it's hard to point out any one person in that process, but like all I can say is a bunch of guys that got around the table and said, wow, this is where we want to be, let's go there.
A big cornerstone of your project is what you've kind of coined as sort of aerial servitude rights. I think aerial, it's a unique one that I had not heard prior to you introducing it. And we actually have a question coming in from the panel, from the audience as well, is, you know, this is obviously something that you were able to achieve by having it in the deed of sale up front, that you as the developer have the right to maintain that area. If you as the developer exit the project, do the homeowners association then take over those rights to manage the aerial servitude? Will they always sort of sit in the kitty? You don't mind if it's probably not the best way to describe it, but you know what I mean?
Okay. So you know, being on the other side of the coin, I hate to use the word devil's advocate, but when I set this up, I asked myself both sides of the question. So I said, okay, so here I am, I'm buying a house, and these are going to make power for me. So how do I know they're not going to rip me off of the power? So I introduced that into the agreement, the sale agreement. I said, right, this is the price of power. And then I went backwards and forwards in my own way as a property buyer as well as a developer, and I completely went across the board and I asked myself the questions I would have asked as if I was doing both things. So when it came to like, okay, so what happens if you can't do it? And we introduced a clause into the agreement with the title deeds which says, if I can't do it, you can do it for yourself. So I really went through that process of saying, what if, and I think I probably answered most of those questions. You know, I've bought a lot of real estate and I've developed a lot of real estate. So I think I may have, and if there's any new ones, happy to field. So I'm reading along the lines. So one of the questions coming through are just from all the attendees, requirements to get the banks on board. There's an interesting one. What's the approval process from council's electricity department? Billy. So Billy, what I did was, first of all, I waived my rights to to claim for future power. I went in, said to them, right, you don't ever have to give me power. I'm going away. Bye. But I will give you ratepayers, and hey, guess what? I'm going to produce extra energy. So if you want it, I'm here to give it to you. That's how my discussion went with Tshwane, and perhaps yours might go differently, but if you need any help with that, give me a shout. With the banks I brought on board way long ago. My product, the green housing techno product, which is not built from bricks and mortar, but built from all the clever, smart stuff that I can find, was approved by the banks before we went in. So getting off grid and the whole solar angle at Greenhill was pre-approved. Now, if you need any help with that, again, I can help you with that. But if you want to go into something new, I think it's clever that you get the banks to pre-approve where you're going with it and don't try and come change it later. I just think so. And then someone else asks different kinds of units to choose from, different requirements and layouts on their roofs. Do you mind sharing their specs? We work with a flat roof system at Greenhill. The reason for that is because we use double-sided panels that we raise 0.5 meter off the roof. We use white crystal stone to reflect on the roof, which acts as an insulator, because at Greenhill we look down on the roofs next to us. So I'm a bit of a stickler for that. I have to have Gucci roofs. So my roofs look more like a chessboard, domino board, with the white crystal stone underneath and the panels spaced out equally on the roof. And we'll use 30 panels per roof, so it's exactly the same set array of panels per home when you're looking down on them. Then there was a question about grid-tied system. Does the solar installation need a separate earth spark? Absolutely, absolutely. I think the best person to ask about earthing a home would be an engineer, but I think the more earth that you have, the better you will be planted.
Thank you so much, Brett. We appreciate all your insight, and we look forward to continuing to hear about your journey with Tshwane and also your levy-free environment. You know, and as I say those words, I can feel the community management who are in this audience kind of shaking in their boots. So I don't know if I want to say it too many times, but thank you so much for your insight. Moving across and
just one last thing, Louise. This is a Res 2 environment. I doubt in a sectional title environment you can ever get to that. So if the sectional title guys can breathe, it has to be done in a Res 2 environment.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a few plans for sectional titles as well. I think a lot of those guys have been 12J'ing their solutions and they're putting it on their roofs. And so yeah, but we'll unpack that a little bit further down the line. Thank you so much again, Brett.
I'm getting myself out of the dog box there. So.
You're not. You've put yourself out there. We haven't forgotten. So I had to also smile when you mentioned that the City of Tshwane are the most progressive municipality. I think the folks from eThekwini might choose to disagree with you. You know, we're very pleased to have the folks from eThekwini. There's a lot, you know, we look across at Durban, and though not all of the developments in Durban are within the eThekwini municipality, there is an enormous amount of development that's happening in Durban, especially prior to the pandemic. And it's nice to see that development continuing. And whenever you speak to property developers from the Durban area, they are very positive, and they continue to invest heavily into projects in Durban, regardless of political climates, recessions. You know, they really see value in Durban, and so I'm very grateful to have you all here today. So without further ado, let me hand over. Magash, I know you're going to be manning the presentation at this point, so folks, hang in with us if we have any technical challenges at this point. And Naseema, I think you are going to enlighten us a little bit about what the C40 project is.
Thanks, Louise. I'll start off by introducing myself and the C40 program, which is a common program across 4 cities in South Africa. We love our colleagues at the City of Tshwane, and they're absolutely brilliant, so we concur. Also, this program is running in the city of Cape Town, city of Johannesburg, City of Tshwane, and of course the eThekwini municipality. So this program is is a result of the Paris Agreement, where financial and technical assistance is being given to developing countries to mitigate the worst impact of climate change, as you've seen on the first slide, where the 2017 and 2018 storms had a huge impact on private and public infrastructure. The Paris Agreement was a momentous occasion in the climate change arena, where nations around the world agreed to take action and limit temperature increase to 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels. I know that during the Trump administration, the United States did withdraw from the Paris Agreement. However, 33% of the United States economy still committed to providing technical and financial assistance towards a transition into a low carbon economy. 33% of the US economy economy is massive. I think it's something over $10 trillion, which is bigger than any nation in the world. So taking climate action is a real and a serious agenda going forward. Moving on to the next slide. C40 Cities is a network of the world's mega cities committed to addressing climate change. So when the Paris Agreement was ratified in 2015, the way forward for cities was largely unclear. And this allowed C40 to produce a set of research documents and action items that cities could take forward and assist the country in reducing its greenhouse gas emissions. The eThekwini municipality is taking a leadership seat in the world of climate change. Mayor Kaunda is vice chair of C40 Africa, as well as Durban achieving many awards in climate change, specifically for their reporting on environmental and climate change initiatives on the CDP list. So the C40 New Buildings Program, as I mentioned, is a result of financial and technical assistance being provided to South Africa in the 4 cities you're seeing on your screen. The objective of the program is to mandate the uptake of highly energy efficient buildings, new buildings. So all new buildings will be highly energy efficient. And the catchphrase used is called net zero carbon new buildings. In simple terms, a net zero carbon building is a highly energy efficient building that is supplemented by renewable energy. So why the building sector? Global research shows that buildings contribute to about 1/3 of global greenhouse gas emissions, and we confirm this figure locally. So if we want to cut emissions, the building sector is the most significant way we can do it. And it's also the most cheapest way we can do this. The pathway of eThekwini's new building program is one of extensive engagement and education. We would need to help the entire building sector and the construction industry transition towards being highly energy efficient. Typically, energy efficiency levels at this stage vary from 3% to 8%, but aiming for net zero carbon status will help you achieve energy efficiency levels of over 50%. Next slide. And so I did define the concept, but to go over it again, this definition is given to us by the World Green Building Council, and this program is specifically focused to new buildings. So a new building is a facility that did not previously exist. At this stage, we're still debating, and we'd value your engagement on whether major improvements or refurbishments should be included. But essentially, a net zero carbon new building is a building that is designed to be highly energy efficient in its operations, where the remaining operational energy use, because of course we cannot have a zero energy building, so the remaining energy use is supplemented by renewable power. So that's a high-level introduction from myself and from the C40 group. And I'm now going to hand over to Dr. Magash Naidoo, who is the lead municipal official of the New Buildings Program and developing the policy. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Naseema. And, before I get going, I just want to say thank you to Louise and Jamie Lee as well. You've been excellent in pulling this together, and the preparation's been fantastic. Just some bureaucracy from my side. eThekwini's participation in the session doesn't necessarily endorse the products or the services from living or affiliates, but the process leading up to this webinar has been fantastic. So just to get a bit into the policy, this process was started some time ago with the overarching program. And obviously we had to take a lot of research and be prudent in our steps going forward. But in 2019, the eThekwini Council gave us sort of authority through a resolution to proceed with drafting of the new buildings program. And really the policy as we have it now in draft form would not have been possible if it wasn't through collaboration between various departments and some support sort of collaborators from C40 and C40's implementing partner in South Africa. I'm just going to pause here so you guys can take a photo. I don't think you're going to copy and paste the link, but we are going to be making the presentation available. And through these links, you'll be able to access the actual policy document and some information on the forthcoming aspects of the program. But in essence, and I know we've got a limited time, so we're just going to go straight into the policy. The contents of the policy includes a preamble, the purpose of the policy, why we developed it, what guides the legal framework, the problem statement, and what we're trying to rectify. And then, the usual definitions and acronyms in such documents. We then talk about the rules and provisions of the policy, the procedures, evaluation and review, which is very bureaucratic item just to ensure that the policy is updated. And Annexure 1 and 2, more 1 than 2, is actually the crux of the policy in terms of what is required. So we're not going to go through the entire contents of the policy. And just keeping time into consideration. I'm going to give you some snapshots before we go into Annexure 1. So the city is undergoing a process now to make submission of building plans a bit easier, the turnaround times faster. So that ease of doing business in the city, sort of with that in mind, we were looking at processes, mechanisms where we do not make it more difficult for developers to submit applications to the city. This is something new. We're likely to have teething problems at the first few months until we rectified. So what we've discussed with our colleagues from Development Management Department is that before formal submission of the plan to development application and approvals section, the Energy Office will be requested by the developer to issue a form of clearance to ensure that the plan is compliant with the details that we'll go through just now. So that compliance will then go with the plan to the development applications and approvals branch, for formal approval and their legislated processes. Now it's important to note that we have developed a standard operating procedure that specifies the time and turnaround time. So we're looking about 2 to 3 days from the Energy Office to get you a response. And then obviously guidance, some guidance on what can or should be improved. Importantly, at this point in time, we haven't planned to levy any fees for that process. When it comes to the Energy Office, that could be on its cards, on the cards going forward. But what I would definitely request is that everybody read the policy document. Normally this presentation, the part of it that I'm talking about now takes about 30 minutes. I'm trying to compress it within less than 5 minutes. So a lot of the content, please do read and then pop me email with comments. Essentially though, what we are asking for is for specific energy use intensity to be achieved per building typology. Now, we've obviously kept the industry in mind and not taken the approach where, within a year we want all buildings to be net zero carbon. That'd just be unfair. So we've taken a phased approach that from now, and I know we've got SANS 10400 and then XA coming up, version 2 imminent. So we are utilizing some of figures from version 1, phased in over a few years up until 2030 to ensure that your electricity consumption is decreased as much as possible. The reason why we use energy intensity, and sort of then this would imply that developers would have to take a sort of a rational design approach as opposed to deemed to satisfy, is that it'll be extremely onerous at this point in time on the developer and difficult from our perspective to specify what is required, because each building is designed differently, it's different technologies, and there's constantly evolution in the market in terms of what's available. So we're aiming to have an energy intensity target achieved through the energy modeling processes that developers go through. At this point in time, you'll find that low-income housing and industrial complexes are exempt from this policy, well, in the draft at least. But just to give you an example, if we look at domestic houses and the middle income occupation description, you look at the 2030 target of 32 kilowatt hours per meter square per annum. I've done a calculation in my home, and at this point in time in 2020, I'm consuming about 14 kilowatt hours per meter square per annum. So definitely, by 2030, these targets are attainable, they're achievable. We've had a lot of our colleagues within the municipality and outside, in terms of the guys we've been requested to verify the information and our research. They've said that these targets are not ambitious enough. That could be purely from a technical point of view, correct? But again, if we take an ecosystem approach and consideration of all stakeholders, we want to ensure that everybody agrees to this. We want to ensure that everybody's objectives are achieved. We don't want to make it more onerous, because we need to be working hand in hand and developing this relationship so we can achieve our objectives and ensure that we have a safe environment and climate for future generations. So I won't go through any more of the energy usage intensity figures, except to say that we all know that with energy efficiency interventions, active, passive, we can only decrease electricity consumption to 8 points. It's obviously not possible to get it to 0. So what we're intending is that the electricity that is required is supplied through renewable energy means. And while some of our colleagues are working very hard on ensuring that the grid as a whole is net zero carbon by 2030 and 40% by 2030, that's the eThekwini goal. We've specified per building, what sort of kilowatt hour per meter square per annum is required from renewable energy generation. And this can be on-site or off-site, and then can also, not the preferred option, but we can then start talking about carbon credits and so on. So that energy intensity usage figures are contained in Annex 1. Annex 2 are additional considerations. And why I say additional considerations is that the aim of the new building program was purely on carbon from an operational perspective. It didn't talk about embodied carbon, which we then plan to approach as a city sort of in phase 2 and 3 of this process. But importantly, we thought, technically it's not too difficult to include some of these other green considerations. What's more difficult, local government or requires more attention is to really get the wheels turning in terms of bureaucracy and processes. So we took the advantage or the opportunity while the process was in motion to include some other considerations. Now, this is not compulsory. It's sort of aspects that we would like to be included in buildings, and they range from water, waste management, which inclusive of wastewater and solid solid waste, clean construction, embodied energy, alternative vehicles, and importantly, local procurement. I think the more we procure locally, the better the motivation for local businesses to set up manufacturing locally. And this is part of the ecosystem we're trying to develop. But I won't dwell too much. I don't want to exceed my time, which I think I might be. But as part of the ecosystem, we are looking at various interventions, and just two of them is the first being a guide that we've developed on how to develop net zero buildings in South Africa. Well, not we've collaborated and gotten the ball rolling on this project, and it was sort of taken over, and I'm glad that the organization had come to the party. They're a fantastic group of people, but the organization is the South African chapter of the American Society for Heating, Refrigeration and Air Conditioning Engineers of America. So it's called ASHRAE. I might have gotten that acronym wrong. But if you go to the links that I provided on one of the earlier slides, you'll be able to get this freely available guide that was developed by ASHRAE. Before I go on, so just to whet your appetites a little bit as well, and everybody loves incentives and things like that. What's in the pipeline is also a green building incentive that eThekwini municipality is looking at instituting. This we've developed some time ago, hand in hand with our revenue management team, and they were quite keen. So we had to first go out to consult on our main green building policy before we could start an incentive policy. We can't put the cart before the horse, so to speak. So that's going to be forthcoming early next year, and it's something we're really excited about. I think Brett, you mentioned Tshwane being fantastic. I bet an incentive policy is not on the cards in Tshwane, right? So from that perspective, eThekwini wins the race. But I must concur, the Tshwane team and Johannesburg and Cape Town, the officials, they are fantastic. So my details, my email address is on the screen. Please feel free to email me comments on the policy. And we can take engagement further from there. So I've got an additional 5 minutes per se. My colleague Sanjeeth Sewchurran from the electricity department was not able to join us, but he has supplied information to me to share. And his information is essentially connection to the eThekwini electrical grid. So as it stands, it is possible for small-scale generators to feed into our electrical grid. We actually have a number of renewable energy generators feeding in at the moment. We, as a city, we also have a number of our own renewable energy sort of systems up and running, and they range from 5 kilowatt of PV on the arch of Moses Mabhida to like a 7 megawatt landfill gas to electricity program. Importantly, though, there is an application process that is in place, and it's only legally possible to install after that approval. And approval is then obviously granted after inspection by the city. Recently, NERSA, which is the National Energy Regulator of South Africa, has approved a number of small-scale embedded generation tariffs. And I'll share the links just now, but obviously time doesn't permit us to go into detail. And at the moment, bi-directional meters are being sort of procured and sourced, and the billing system being adapted. So all of the information is available on durban.gov.za. If you then go into the services section and then further electricity, you'll find the embedded generation guidelines are there, and then the applications, well, the link is available. For more information, there's Sanjeeth's email. It is Sewchurran. So feel free to email him for further information. And we're always willing to engage and assist where possible. So with that, I thank you.
Thank you so much. Can I quickly interject before we move on to Claire? Just a question that's come up, I noticed in our chat box, and I think Brett has a question as well. Malcolm Samuels from Zimbiti is asking us, what is, in your opinion, what is the plan for other municipalities like KDM? Will they follow the same route? Do they have the same appetite? And do they not see this as a loss of revenue or a threat of a loss of revenue?
Perfect. So that's an excellent question. As it stands, right? Naseema mentioned that the program is inclusive of 3 other of the bigger metros, so Cape Town, Tshwane, and Johannesburg. And they're more or less following a similar trajectory. I know we were the first to issue our policy for public comment and so on and so forth. So from the metro perspective, we are then trying to, set precedent and best practice down for municipalities to follow. In addition, the National Development Plan has a target by 2030 that all new buildings would be net zero sort of carbon from an operational perspective as well. So I suspect in the coming years, the other municipalities will follow suit. Nothing against the other municipalities, but it seems like the 4 metros we mentioned are just a bit ahead of the curve. From our perspective, it's important to ease developers into it, as opposed to getting to 2028, for example, and then 2 years later have this requirement of being net zero carbon. So we really want to ease everybody into it. From a revenue point of view, I think it's a given. And it's kind of obvious that renewable energy generation will then take away some electricity supplies from municipalities and Eskom. But business plans need to change of these sort of utilities. We have undertaken some research way back 2012-13. And at that time, studies did indicate an impact on sort of revenue generation, so to speak. But we're confident that, and this is just my personal opinion, without speaking, just like broadly speaking, at least, the cost of not taking action for climate change and limiting greenhouse gas emissions. So the cost of not taking action is higher than the cost of taking action. So that is generally our approach. I hope that covers.
Yeah, it's just to say, just a further question then. So you've spoken about the C40 project and the net carbon strategies. Has this become will this become legislation? And because obviously the private sector are really open to opportunities around renewable energies, and often we find when dealing with SALGA that legislation needs to come into place for other bodies to then enable their functionalities to come into place. How would you see the legislative process being fast-tracked, or do you see it being fast-tracked?
So that's an interesting question, and at this point in time, the primary national legislation or regulation rather that we rely on is XA, which is coming up with version 2. Now, as fast as that can be updated towards net zero carbon, the better. So it really just depends on the technical aspects. From a local perspective, though, and our policy becoming law, obviously the policy needs to be translated into a bylaw, and that bylaw then needs to be gazetted. So it is also then important to note that while what we are trying to achieve and the specifications, we're trying to push for it to become the norm and standard, at this point in time, there's nothing stopping any developer, like Brett has taken the opportunity to develop that fantastic, estate. There's nothing stopping developers from going the extra mile now, and outside of legislation, to develop these buildings or facilities. What we did acknowledge, though, is that there is generally a higher capital upfront cost, and this is why we've taken the ecosystem approach. Then, as eThekwini have in the pipeline the incentive policy to try and mitigate some of these costs.
At this point, can residential communities apply for renewable energy solutions?
So that's so yes, you can apply to have your renewable energy system, feed into the grid. It might not be possible to get reimbursed because they're still working on those mechanisms, but yes, it is possible. In addition, and maybe Claire can elaborate a little bit on this, it's important that your system is completely legal. And from eThekwini's perspective, there are two processes. One is obviously connecting to the electrical grid, but the second is, controls from a land use management perspective. So particularly when you're putting something on your roof, we want to ensure everything is structurally sound, and we don't wake up one morning and your PV system is on your kitchen nook or something like that. So there are various, well, those are the two main processes. So it is possible to start right now. It's just the incentive. We're looking at possibly second quarter of next calendar year for it to be up and running.
I think Brett had a question there before we move on to Claire. Brett, your question? Your sound, Brett.
Just a sec, y'all. There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Magash, so this initiative, I see that it's a countrywide initiative. Do I understand correctly that you run this initiative on behalf of all the provinces?
So that's the question. Okay. So no, it's a national program from the sense that there are 4 municipalities participating. Now, each of those municipalities are participating only for what's within their legal jurisdiction, not the provinces or anything like that.
That's good. So in each province, there would be someone like you representing that area.
Well, there's nobody like me, right? I'm unique.
Yeah,
but yeah, but in essence, there would be somebody within a city. So for Gauteng, for example, there's 2 metros there, and there's 2 of me, and then 2 of Naseema, and they should theoretically be in each then municipality.
Would you be so kind as to just share those details with? I'm sure there's a couple of guys who are about to build new buildings that could very much take advantage of what you've just said. So that was an amazing thing. And then can I also just say that hats off to you guys as well for seeing the value in creating ratepayers, and not being short-sighted about the fact that without development and without housing and without that social support structure, where are we going? So yeah, hats off to you guys. Well done. I only mentioned Tshwane because they came with me, but I look forward to doing something with you guys in Durban soon. At least I can wear my shorts.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Brett. Claire, I see she's disappeared from our discussion group here. Is Claire still with us on your side? Oh dear, I've lost.
I think it might have been a network issue.
Yeah, it looks like she's dropped off, Louise.
She dropped off. Okay, well, if she gets back up on, we'll move on to, we can always just go back to her. So thank you so much, Magash. Thank you so much to your team for putting the time aside to joining us today. So now that we've had a better understanding, we know what developers want, we've seen what Brett's doing with Tshwane, we've seen what eThekwini's up to and what the bigger picture is for energy efficiencies. I thought, bearing in mind that this is very much focused on residential communities and property developers and individual homeowners living within a community, we have a unique advantage within these communities in the fact that we have the opportunity to create, if necessary, a mini grid of sorts, if that is what we're looking for, or have opportunities for shared power through technology. Kevin Shames is with us here from Brightlight. They are specialists when it comes to creating these specific types of, I don't know, is a grid a right word, Kevin? I might be putting myself saying the wrong thing here. But they really are specialists and able to look at the unique uniqueness of a residential community and also the opportunities that lie there within. So Kevin, are you there? Yes, Kevin.
I'm here.
If I can hand over the reins to yourself and if you could enlighten us. Lol.
Thanks, Louise, and good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for the opportunity to present. We're very excited to be involved in this webinar. So Brightlight is a Section 12J company. I'm not sure if everyone is familiar with that. Julia, if you can go to the next slide, please. And a Section 12J company uses a section of the Income Tax Act to raise capital from investors. I'm not going to go into that. If anyone wants more details, they can certainly contact me. But Brightlight Solar has raised almost 200 million Rand from investors, and we use that to invest in renewable energy utilities for our customers. Who are our customers? Primarily, we are focused on the gated estate market. So we've done over 100 body corporates, sectional title body corporates and homeowners associations. We also provide solar opportunities into the commercial and industrial sectors. But our focus, and specifically in terms of today's presentation, is all around providing a suite of renewable energy utilities. So we really focus on solar PV, on battery storage solutions, as well as on hot water solutions. And really what we do is we then provide that suite of solutions into primarily the gated estate market. Our model is based on a fully funded approach. What that means is it costs our customer absolutely nothing. We use the capital that we have raised from our Section 12J company, and we invest that into these renewable energy solutions and provide the energy, the hot water, and the stored energy through batteries to our customers, primarily on a consumption basis. We've got two models that we're very excited to present today. The first one is our developer model, and the second one is our HOA model. So in terms of our developer model, next slide, please. Our developer model, we provide developers with a holistic, cost-free solution. It's quite a mouthful to say, but it's a great opportunity for developers to, first of all, embrace renewable energy opportunities, but most importantly, it's at no cost to the developer. So we provide all of the services, the solar PV, we do large-scale battery and load-shedding solutions, as well as full-service hot water solutions. And I mentioned there generation, storage, and distribution. So we'll generate the hot water, we store it, and we even run hot water rings where we provide the hot water to each unit. And all of that is at absolutely no cost to the developer, because we then recover our costs through usage from the residents. So what that means is that developers can effectively take the costs of providing solar batteries and hot water out of their budgets and effectively put that profit in their pocket. And we would then provide these range of services through service level agreements over a long period of time. that opportunity fundamentally changes the profitability of developing properties. We as a company believe in the concept of a win-win-win solution. How does that win-win-win relate into this opportunity here? It's a win for the developer in that the developer is paying nothing for these services to be provided. It's a win for the consumer in that they are using these renewable energy solutions at sometimes very large discounts to what they would currently be paying to the existing utilities. And it's a win for us in that we get to invest our investors' money into these renewable energy projects in line with our mandate. Next slide, please. In terms then of our HOA model, what we do is we work both with the homeowner and the homeowners association. Now, the homeowner typically has a slightly different requirement or objective to the HOA, in that living in the energy insecure world that we all live in, we all desire this concept of energy security. Energy security typically comes at a cost, but what we've managed to do is by providing this full suite of solutions is we've managed to bring down the cost of energy security to a very small premium over what you would be paying. And that suite that we provide is solar PV, battery and hot water solutions into the home to provide you with that energy security, that in the event of load shedding or power outages, that at least you have that battery backup, that you can continue your life relatively as normal, notwithstanding the fact that we do have this unstable grid. From an HOA point of view, what we focus on is the common areas, restaurants, bars, and the areas where people congregate, as well as the HOA offices. But normally what we find with HOAs is that their primary objective is energy saving rather than energy security. So from an energy saving point of view, what we want to do is provide these solutions at the lowest cost of electricity possible. And that's really, so those are the two primary models. It's an energy security and an energy saving model. The objective that we have is to maximize the use of renewable energy in all of our installations. We have a burning desire to be green. So Brett's whole model that he's developed is exactly in line. And I guess probably most people on this panel are in this business because we want to make the world a better place. And it's interesting, I got a phone call yesterday from a customer who wanted us to put a big generator system in, and it just goes against what we do, because we really want to focus much more on the renewable energy and try and avoid those diesel emissions. What is interesting is in the domestic market is that the heating of water represents between 50 and 60% of your bill. So by putting in an energy efficient hot water system, you attack roughly 50 to 60% of your current electricity bill, and you can make very substantial savings as a result of focusing on heating your water through sunlight during the day and storing it efficiently for use at night or even the following morning. We do provide either a cash or a fully funded solution. We've got 5 different standardized solutions that range from battery only, solar only, and then a combination of battery, solar, and hot water solutions. But we also provide our customers the opportunity to customize. We're busy doing one for a client at the moment where it was totally beyond our 5 standardized solutions, and we're able to address their specific needs. And it is also available for all different types of HOAs, from the large urban residential estates all the way through to small agricultural estates that we're working on at the moment, where there's an agricultural HOA of 12 mini farms, you could call them, and we're providing them this range of solutions into that. Next slide, please. Just to give you an idea of the kind of solutions that we have done, ranging from the top left there is the Supergroup distribution center in Jet Park. That is just under 1 megawatt. The Yonder Hill Body Corporate, I wanted to give you an idea of the kind of things that we do with carports. So there you can see the solar carports. The Comet Oaks Body Corporate is, your classic body corporate, where we have then provided them with this the solar solution, and one of the malls that we've done in Kempton Park called Kempstar Mall. So that concludes my part of the presentation. My contact details are on the next slide, and if anyone would like any further details, please feel free to contact us. Also to visit our website, where there's a whole host of information there, and we look forward to working with you, both developers and HOAs, going forward. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much, Kevin. Just a quick question, and I kind of sort of see it coming up as you were speaking. If the model is a 12J scheme, if I'm correct in saying, the investors in that scheme are own the infrastructure, then is that correct?
That is correct.
So do you give the HOA the option at some point to purchase back that infrastructure? Because I understand how a 12J scheme works. I'm sure most of our listeners do as well. But they're understanding how a homeowners association and the homeowners and trustees, often they would, if the option came up to own the infrastructure, I'm sure they would rather own it. And in that way, empower themselves to choose who manages that SLA and who delivers that service. How would that landscape look? Is there a certain time period after 5 years, 10 years, they can buy up the infrastructure at the sort of price, the competitive price?
So Louise, because we're a 12J company, we are not allowed to provide financial services. That's one of the restricted businesses that you're not allowed to be involved in. So we provide it on an operating lease basis, but we do provide the customer with the opportunity of buying out the installation during the period, and then offer them the opportunity of buying the installation at a market-related price at the end of the lease period.
And just second to that, if your business does focus on creating 12J schemes, are you creating the 12J scheme, and would it be an option for the individual homeowners within an estate to be the investors within that 12J scheme?
So at the moment, Section 12J has a sunset clause, which means it expires at the end of June next year, and that hasn't yet been extended. So we don't know if Section 12J will be continuing past June next year, but certainly the opportunity to invest, we would always like to talk to HOAs if they wanted to co-invest with us. We offer all of our customers, our partners, the opportunity of co-investing with us at whatever percentage works for them. So yes, we would always look at an opportunity of creating what's called a qualifying company in terms of Section 12J, and providing that as a co-investment opportunity. That's a great idea.
So just on that note, then I know we need to move on to sort of time management, but if there is no news about the actual 12J opportunity being extended beyond June, what happens to the current schemes at that stage?
So that only affects new investments coming in after June next year. So anyone that has invested in a Section 12J, your tax deduction remains as long as you remain invested for at least 5 years. There's no recoupment. It only really affects capital raising after June next year.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Kevin. And it's a very interesting way. We've seen it roll out very successfully, sort of the capital cost of the panels being, funded through a draft 12J scheme, and it's very interesting opportunity there. So just moving on, and just so that we can keep an eye on the time, I think that one of the things when we look at sustainability and renewable energies is how do we manage these renewable energies. If we are creating mini grids of sorts within our residential communities or in our developments, how does the sort of back end of that, how does that management look? So we've invited PEC, Wouter, Shay patiently waiting there, I can see, to just look at utilities management and the landscape of utilities management, and just, we've got all these great ideas, but what's the, how do we bring it back to our estates and to our developments? If I can hand over to you, Wouter, and Julia, if you don't mind moving to the next slide.
Thank you, Louise, and thank you for the opportunity. Being a straightforward technical person, so you have to excuse me, I might wander off a little bit on the technical side. I'm going to try not to do that much, but unfortunately, to speak about the management of energy, and especially when you add on renewable energy, it becomes a little bit technical. We are being bombarded these days. We started off as a utility company managing electricity, water, and even gas to some extent. We basically working, our main business sector is more on the sub-metering side of things. And if I can explain that easier, it's on the downstream side of the council meter. In other words, all the sub-meters, if you take a residential complex, there's a bulk meter. The council takes care of the bulk meter. They issue one association, and we do the billing on the inside meters for all the tenants. Now, it becomes a little bit more involved when you add renewable solar systems to the whole equation. So I'm just going to highlight a few technical points to make it a little bit more understandable on what we do in terms of metering and the methodology that we use and how we actually show the consumptions. What has come to our attention and is a lot of our customers are paying a lot of money to install these type of systems into their properties, be it commercial, retail, or residential. And if you spend a substantial amount of money, I presume you would like to know exactly what's your return on investment on a monthly going basis. So to do that and to achieve this, we need to use pretty smart equipment. So we use 4-quadrant smart meters, and they are situated in certain areas. So I'm just going to go through a couple of points. For example, the solar generation. First of all, we have to quantify exactly how much energy is being produced by the solar system on that specific property. Then on the council side of things, we need to quantify the export energy. Should there be export? We also on the council meter, we have to quantify the import energy. How much energy has been imported from the council to assist the solar system? Not all of these clients of ours are, well, none of them at this stage are actually fully off the grid. So the same principles will, of course, be applicable to totally off-grid systems. So it's a kind of a generic approach to the metering theory here. Quantifying the total facility energy is, if you take the property, for example, you have a grid-tied system. And for us to give proper reporting to our customers and property owners, it is of utmost importance that we have to quantify the total consumption of that property, including the bulk import, the solar generation, a diesel generator, should there be one, and exactly how much kilowatt hour each of them have contributed to the total consumption. So that is basically the most important part of the reporting to our customers. And then just a little bit on the metering side, we use 4-quadrant AMI meters with full communication. We have portals and web-based secure login portals that our customers can log in at any time, so they can view their reports and their actual consumption. Now, this can be used either by us. We also have the facility, or a part of us can also use this information to make certain suggestions in terms of energy usage and energy management. For example, these smart systems that we've developed over the last 8 to 10 years, they contribute to not only electricity but also water management and supply and monitoring thereof. So we can do on-the-fly leak detection, for argument's sake. On electricity, we can do load side management. We can, for example, if you have a battery storage system, it will also be completely possible to quantify the actual consumption that you were using, let's say at night, from your battery storage system, for argument's sake. We also have done some development on the management of hot water, especially centralized hot water systems, and they are getting all the more popular as we go along. We also make use of, we have cell phone apps. We found it necessary for people not being exactly at their premises. They might be on holiday or wherever else, and then they can easily monitor what's going on at home, argument's sake. The next slide, please. This is just a simple schematic of, I'm just going to show quickly what we do and explain what is our approach to a project like this. We have to define exactly where certain key points are in the reticulation of such a building. For example, is there a bulk connection? Is there a council bulk meter? How many solar tie-in points are there to the main bus, or if there's multiple DB board or mini sub connections? We have to install a meter to each one of these connection points, and then, our system also has the ability to electronically summate these consumptions to a virtual meter, and therefore giving you a clear picture of the total solar consumption on that building. Then, of course, if there's a generator involved, which is not the case in this example that I've given you, if there's a generator case, of course, we're going to measure the generator as well, because that's part and parcel of the total consumption of the property. I'm just going to go through a couple of actual profiles, so we can go to the next slide. I've taken an example from an actual property and that we are currently managing and reporting on a monthly and even daily basis, because it's live data. I've used Sunday, the past weekend Sunday, because that was a pretty nice sunny day, and that is a typical solar production, what we call a bell curve. So obviously this curve is influenced by weather patterns as well, and it actually degrades your generation, and of course you can monitor that. So taken into account, this bell curve is what will be portraying in your total consumption load curve, and it will subsidize a certain part of it. I will get to that. The portal will also show you the exact amount of energy being consumed, and of course this I've used one day just to make it easy to look at. The date on this can also be set, be it a month up to 2 months on half an hour profile accuracy. We can move to the next slide. Now, normally what we do is, if there's a council, well, in our case, there's normally always a council bulk meter, which the council use. We're not allowed to touch it. So we install a bulk check meter with the remote capability in series with the council meters, so that we can retrieve this information not only for comparison, but also because our system is integrated into a certain protocol, and we can understand this information, and it's in parallel to what is happening on the council meter. Now, on this specific graph, you will now see the top part of the zero line is the import kilowatt hours on the green, and the green on the bottom side is where you've exported. Now, this is specifically on a Sunday, where your consumption is, this is a factory, so the factory doesn't run the whole Sunday, only partially, and where it is off, the sun, actually the excess energy being produced on the solar will export through the bulk meter. Now, this is very important, especially if we look at what's going to happen going forward. Is there going to be a rebate on export energy? I think it's going to come. I think if we want to take our country forward, it will probably be the case, because that will be an initiative to enhance and try and persuade people to go green, because there's an incentive in it. And I firmly believe that's what's going to happen. I might add, if you look at the total, I don't know if it's clear enough, it's 632, just out of matter of interest. On the council side, if there's solar applicable on any property, on the council meter, if the council, for example, doesn't use a 4-quadrant meter, they will only display and bill for the delta energy, which means it's the import energy minus the export energy, which means the council will lose money. That's why electronic 4-quadrant meters is essential when we look at renewable energy, for the import and the export to be shown separately as an accumulative indicator.
Wouter, sorry to interject there. We just need to keep an eye on the clock, because we need to just wrap up, because there's a very important, one last very important presentation that we don't want to miss. So can I ask you just to wrap it up, if you don't mind?
Yes, I will. Okay, I've spoken enough. We can go basically to page 9 then. Okay, this is the final report that you will give, that will give you an indication of your total facility in terms of what have you produced, what is your contribution from your solar bin, what has your property actually consumed on that period of time, and what have you imported from the grid. So it gives you a holistic view of what your energy consumption is. And this can also be done on even the sub-meter level, the unit inside the residential complex. That is basically from me. I hope that was quick enough.
Thank you so much, Wouter. I'm so sorry. I hate doing that, but you know, we get so excited about each topic, and I think what you're really saying about being able to manage your usage, being able to show accountability, and in the case of large residential communities, that the actual community team are involved in the bulk metering process, and it is a huge bone of contention amongst homeowners. It does cause issues for the HOA, and that can then lead into conflict resolution and going forth to CSOS and so on and so forth. So having a very transparent system will speed that process up a lot and create for more harmonious community living spaces, because it does cause problems. We know that, absolutely. So thank you so much. And then Jonathan, I appreciate your patience. We're coming into the last part of our presentation for the day, and I think it just brings it all the way back to the house. How can a homeowner at this point who wants to take their property into an off-grid solution, how can a homeowner subsidize that cost, or how can a homeowner raise capital around that cost? And that's really what you're going to be explaining to us. So Jonathan from Teljoy, thank you so much for being so patient, and we appreciate your expertise on the financing of energy solutions. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks very much for having me, guys. It's been fascinating listening to everybody, and in the interest of time, I'll try to keep it quite brief in terms of what we're doing. Now, I know some of you are asking, what is Teljoy doing on this webinar? Because most of you know Teljoy as a TV rental business. So what many of you won't know is that we've got a couple of other businesses in our stable. From consumer electronics, appliances, through maintenance products, through large-scale business solutions, all on a rental basis. Dabbling in solar for a few years, we looked at a few opportunities, and again, with 50 years of history with bringing in, you can go to the next slide. We've been around for over 50 years, and for all intents and purposes, we are an alternative funding solution for many of, you can go one slide back, for most solutions in the house. We introduced TV in 1975, we introduced cellular in 1994. Our focus now is household electronics, furniture, appliances, and then obviously hospitality environments. We've partnered up.
Have we lost Jonathan? Jonathan?
Yeah, he seems to have dropped off, Louise.
Oh dear, shame to all that. We can give him a moment to jump back in. Are you there?
Yeah, okay. Apologies, it just cut out.
We lost you.
It was fine the whole time.
Just for a second, please.
Cool. Sorry. Okay, so we've, as I said, we've partnered with our friends at Greenhouse Consulting, who are consultants in the solar industry. Our objective is to create funded models for consumers on a fully maintained lease basis. I mean, I look at the Bright Light presentation and the 12J. I think largely the difference between us is that we're bringing our own balance sheet to the table as opposed to 12J funding. We are a rent-to-own business, which addresses your question, Louise, around ownership. Our objective is to make sure that you can divert some of your Eskom spend over to us and be obviously have independent energy and not have to worry about the likes of load shedding and so on. You can go to the next slide. Next slide. So with what we've done with our friends at Greenhouse and our partners is that we've created a few standardized products, but very much bespoke solutions for different types of houses. We're very cognizant that not every house is built the same. Not every house needs the same solutions. So our model is more of a consultative discussion. We build out the model, and then we present a rental model, a fully maintained rental model to our customers. and as a consequence allows them to have the flexibility in the rental. You know, the maintenance is all covered. You've got one number to phone if there's an issue, and obviously ultimately for the sole purpose of getting you as off-grid as possible in order to be energy independent. We can move a few slides further. I'll tell you what a couple of the products that we've been looking at. Next slide, please. One more. One more. Yeah, so there's the benefits. Ultimately, from an ownership perspective, the customer will own it and make sure that, you know, after a period of time, you should be completely self-sufficient with no real cost. The next slide, please. What we've worked on is a couple of different models just for the purpose of this presentation, but just bear in mind that that our solutions are all bespoke. The Tesla Powerwall as an example with solar power, and then some hybrid power systems which will have the inverter backup and battery systems for the entire grid system. All of our products and solutions include the design, installation and maintenance, with ultimately the objective of creating independent systems and solutions. I know that was very brief, and I know that time is of the essence. So I don't want to waste anybody's more of their time. I'm hoping that got the bulk of our offering. If anybody needs to contact me, you can get through Louise or Jamie Lee. And thanks for having me. Sorry it was very rushed.
Jonathan, just before you go, just a question. So the funding mechanism that you have in place is for individual homeowners, correct?
Yeah, and businesses and alike, and estates as well. So we do anything from some small installations all the way to major installations.
So for an existing development that's looking at retrofitting a solution in place, but doesn't necessarily have the space to build a solar farm or build some kind of collective, and they're not a development such as Brett's, which could do a lot in pre-planning. Do you look at, how would you look at that estate? You would install on each and every homeowner's roof, and then or wherever it is, and then would there be an opportunity to use it as collectively, like a mini grid, and do you offer some kind of critical mass, solution? So there are 100 homes and the entire estate wants to go off grid. There's 100 individual homes that would be looking for financial support. You would offer a specific package to all 100 homes. Yes. Is that something that you work, that space you're working in?
Absolutely. So we the financier, all of the solutions that have been spoken about, we have the ability to fund that. And that's why I'm certainly not extremely technical around this. I'm just an accountant, but we know how to finance, and we know how to run fully maintained asset-based lending businesses. So we can most definitely do all the way from individuals throughout entire estates, and create some sort of collective around that for the purposes of without huge capital outlay. I mean, we own that installation until such time as that either the estate or the individual takes ownership of that, which is why I've got a vested interest in making sure that's working at all times. So we run multiple SLA businesses, which this is exactly that. We can retrofit to estates, and it's not limited only to electricity, but it's also to water, also to pools, as an example. If you want to heat up your pool, we offer solutions like that. So it's the sky's the limit in terms of what we can do as the financier of these solutions.
And then, so second to that question, during the time that you are financing the product, so in that rental payback period, the service level agreement will be with yourself or one of your partners.
Absolutely.
Is that correct?
Yeah,
And the insurance on the asset?
So depending on the scale of the installation, we may require insurance to be covered by either the business or the individual. We'll cover insurance. It does depend on the scale. We're looking to create scalable solutions, but it just depends on the type of deal that we do. But currently in our ordinary business, we do cover insurance, and there's no reason why we wouldn't on these types of installations.
Sorry, just one, I know we have to wrap up, just one, and I've got Claire on the back also wanting just to drop in there as well. So, often, and I see this, and I don't know if it's the same in a solar environment, but I know in a fiber environment, for example, if the installation is done by one supplier, and then you bring in another supplier, they're always saying, oh, well, we can't guarantee that installation, and they're not prepared to, work off that. Once that buy to rent period is over and you choose to then bring in an SLA with a different company, as a homeowner, as the owner now of that asset, have you experienced any problems where now, a new service provider will want to change the system or not be prepared to work on a system that perhaps you've installed? Maybe not yourself, but you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like a similar case to what you might have in a an environment.
Sure. Yeah. So very few and far between. I mean, all of our installations are done in terms of best practice. Quality assurance is important to us. Why? Because we cover all the warranties, even after the rental is done. So we've got, as I said, a vested interest in making sure that those installations are done well, and the workmanship is top notch, and the actual hardware that is used is adequate for the scale of the solution. It's, to your point, it's the owner's prerogative to find an SLA that works for them. And we pride ourselves, we're a business that's 50 years old for a reason. Our after sales service is impeccable, and we want to keep customers on our base for as long as possible by delivering the quality of service that we do.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. And I appreciate everybody's time. Claire is in the sidelines. Unfortunately, Claire is from eThekwini municipality, and at the time you went offline, and I know, and this is a recorded session, and I don't want to miss out on the opportunity to hear your input, because although it will go much more beyond what the individuals that have attended today, but also to the folks that have asked us to share the webinar link. Claire, I know you hadn't a presentation, prepared there, but if you would mind jumping in and just explaining your role within eThekwini and some of the challenges that you faced and some of the solutions that you have in place.
Thank you very much, Louise. And I promise you, we have paid Eskom from eThekwini. I don't know what happened, but I got thrown out entirely. The entire internet went down. But those are some of the challenges they actually face. So I head up the land use management side of eThekwini municipality, sitting within the development planning and environmental management unit, which my colleagues Naseema and Magash are obviously involved in on the energy office side. And I've thoroughly enjoyed everybody's presentations and contributions today. Probably from my perspective, Brett Petzer's experience as a developer with the municipality is certainly something that was very interesting. And there's no doubt that as municipalities, we need to engage and have this conversation with developers around what solutions they're looking at and what alternatives. Durban has always prided itself, and certainly eThekwini, as being innovative. And if anything, COVID's taught us how to go online for development applications within 3 weeks, which has been a huge challenge for us. But certainly, I think that if we're going to look at the residential housing market and how it's going to change, those are the sort of issues that we need to look at. I was particularly interested in Brett's comments about how going off the grid in terms of electricity and certainly water opens up development, because that's one of the challenges all of us have as municipalities. We do not have the capital budget to keep on rolling out electricity, water, and those sort of solutions as the demand is required for certain developments. And although part of our policy is not necessary to have an urban sprawl situation, particularly within eThekwini and within the municipality, a third of our area is still under what we call traditional areas. In other words, it falls under the Ingiyama Trust Board. And we have higher densities out there than we sometimes have in our urban areas, but we cannot provide electricity and we cannot provide water. A lot of it's to do with the topography of Natal itself. It is just an incredibly difficult topographical area to develop, lots of hills, and also quite a lot of instability from a geological point of view when you're looking across the coastline. So yes, water harvesting and looking at on-site solutions for providing these sort of bulk energy and bulk water solutions is really important to us. I know that Brett's development is obviously more in what we would term an upmarket type of development, but you do have to start somewhere. And hopefully the costs of these sort of infrastructure as they get rolled out will reduce, because certainly our affordable and lower market is where we actually need these sort of solutions. And also for a municipality, there is a huge opportunity here to generate some sort of income around that, instead of possibly being hostage to Eskom and the availability of their facilities, which impacts on everything, not just residential, but obviously the economy and marketing and issues like that. So I was very interested from that side. I think the challenge for us is that a lot of it comes down to legislation. And in terms of certainly planning legislation, we all have this national act, which is the Spatial Planning and Land Use Management Act. And out of that, most municipalities have come up with their own bylaw to assist in implementing these sort of innovations. But it comes down to the town planning schemes at the end of the day, because if it's not in the scheme, you can't put in a building plan, and you're always in this limbo, if I can put it that way. So eThekwini, in 2018, we have introduced renewable energy regulations into all of our town planning schemes. And in terms of that, we made certain decisions whereby you can apply to have a solar panel or a solar water heater. And if it's below a certain height or a certain size, you don't actually have to do a formal planning application. You can do it with the building plan, just to try and actually encourage people to start looking at your renewable energy. So in terms of a residential development and greenfield type developments, where it's easier to do this right from the beginning, because you're building everything fresh, the scheme is already in place to actually deal with some of those applications. But what we also did was we introduced definitions for a wind farm, for wind turbines, and all the larger type of energy or renewable energy facilities into the schemes to be prepared for getting larger applications as we go along. At the moment, we do have some interest in a possible solar farm up in the Cato Ridge area, where we actually do have a challenge with Eskom, because we partly fall between eThekwini Metro Electricity and then Eskom and some of the outlying areas towards Cato Ridge. So yeah, as a municipality ourselves, we'd like to see us being independent. I think that one of our challenges when it comes to the building plans is whether the national building regulations really are responding to some of these innovations. I know that there are some amendments in the works, but as a planner, we do find that the national building regulations are pretty limiting, and that is something that needs to be looked at. But again, it's a national act and can be difficult. I think the question was raised at some stages to, national, provincial, and municipal planning and legislation. I think at the moment municipalities are taking the lead. There's no doubt about it. The judgment in terms of the Development Facilitation Act, which said that the role of certainly spatial planning and planning itself is within the realm of a municipality, has given us the independence and probably the confidence to go ahead and look at how, as I say, with our schemes, we bring in renewable energy and we look at other innovations. It's much harder to change provincial and national legislation. And I think, Magash and the Energy Office has taken a huge leap forward in moving forward with that, and we work very closely to make sure it's lovely to have plans, it's lovely to have policies, but if the developer can't walk in tomorrow and put in a building plan, he's going to say, what's the point? So I'm very interested in how Tshwane have dealt with this. I think they've done a great job. But I think we have to do more, all of us, and certainly as eThekwini would be very excited to hear about or see some of these developments come our way. I think that's all I'd really like to say at this point. So yes, it's certainly been a very, very interesting discussion, but I think a really important one.
Thank you so much, Claire, and thank you so much for coming in. I'm sorry, as Malcolm so cheekily said, maybe we didn't pay your Eskom bill, but we do appreciate you hanging around and coming, being with us until the end. I know how busy you guys are down there, and you're right. That spatial framework document. I've seen the ones for Tshwane for the for 2030, and we've been fortunate enough to have been part of a few presentations where the spatial planners have come in and discussed what is the, what's happening with the land, how is it being zoned, what is the goal, and at that time it was all about high density living, obviously then securing your transport network, and other such networks. So it is, you're right, and it is a trickle effect as well. Like I said, I found the same in other spheres when it comes to local government, is, everybody's excited to move forward, but somebody needs to get the ball rolling for it to be engaged and things to change and us to fast track those roadblocks. As we wrap up, I see Brett's got his hand up there. I'm nervous to welcome it into the group. We've just made nice with eThekwini. Brett, please. But let's hear from Brett as we end our webinar. Brett, over to you. Don't forget you're muted. You must unmute yourself, Brett. This is the over 50s on the Zoom.
So no, you're 100% right. So out of all of this, I'd just like to frame that last statement of yours. It's the doers that are going to make the difference. And what's come out of this for me is there's a bunch of doers. And I'm just grateful that I could be a part of this. Thank you, Louise. Thank you, Jamie Lee. Thanks to everybody. But that's for me what I'm going to grab out of this. Was there's a whole bunch of doers here that are going to make a difference. So I am truly grateful for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Brett, and on those kind words. Thanks to the panelists and those of you who've attended and have stayed with us to the end. We will be distributing this content. We'll upload it onto our site and distribute it further for yourself and teams and those who've requested it. If you are looking for the content, please feel free to contact me or Jamie. Any contacts with any of the individuals that have been on the panel, we're happy to share their information with you, if that's okay, Claire, and to be able to contact you for further information. So thanks to everybody, and have a wonderful afternoon further. Julie, you can pop our video on, and thanks so much.